Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupara Satarasha Tashmad Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupara Ashtatarasha Tashmad Srila Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupara Ashtatarasha Tashmad Srila Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishtam Vishnupara Ashtatarasha Tashmad Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Maha-Bhagavat Srila Gokshara Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nityalila Pravishta Vaishnav Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Shri Rupanu Gauriya Guru Varga Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Padadash Raghunath Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gopal Shada Vrinda Ki Jai. नाम अक्षय श्री हरिदास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल व्रज मंडल मथुरा वृंदावन धाम की जय। सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदाति गिरिराज महाराज की जय। श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जय। श्री मुन देवी गंगा देवी की जय। श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जय। श्री भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जय। श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जय। श्री भक्ति कमल मधुसूदन गोसाई महाराज की जय। तदीय शुभ तिरुभाव तिथि की जय। श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। समागत गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। श्री निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे हरि हरि बोल। ओम ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय राधिकाय प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायणीति नामिने। नमो ॐ विष्णुपदाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने। वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्य नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। गुरुवे गौरचन्द्राय राधिकाय तदालय कृष्णाय कृष्णभक्ताय तद्भक्ताय नमो नमः। यं प्रव्रजन्तम् अनुपेतमपेतकृत्यं द्वैपायनो विरहकातर आजुहाव पुत्रेति तन्मयतया तरवोऽभिनेदुस्तं सर्वभूत हृदयं मुनिमानतोऽस्मि। नारायणं नमस्कृतं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। शृण्वतं स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तन हृदन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सतं। नष्टप्रायेष्वभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी। तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे त्वां नायमां चरणान्तिकम्। भक्त्या विहीना अपराधलक्षय क्षिप्ताष्टकामादितराङ्गमध्ये कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दं। भज श्रीकृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासरि गौर भक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम Rama Rama Hare Hare. Dandavat pranams Rup Manjari Didi, Madhavi Didi, Indira Mataji, Ganga Didi, Gargaraji. Dandavat pranams to all of you. Hari Bol. So what verse did we read up to yesterday? We read up to 13. Right? I think so. Okay. So let's see. Rahugana offends Jada. So, link. Jada mercy to various people. So he gave mercy, so to his brothers and neighbors who were in the mode of passion, Jada allowed them to see his form. To the leader and the dacoits who were in the mode of ignorance, Jada mercy arranged for his liberation in the next life, because he saw both Jada and the goddess Kali directly. For the leader of the dacoits. Okay. And then to King Rahugana, who was in the mode of goodness, Jada mercy revealed to him bhakti and gyan. Rahugana was in the mode, I guess he went into the mode of passion for a little while, but he was in the mode of goodness because he actually heard Jada instructions. Okay, so verse 1. King Rahugana, the ruler of Sindhu and Sauvira, was on his way to Kapila ashram. His palanquin carriers, who were engaged forcibly, needed an extra bearer. They saw the great devotee Jada, who was young and strong. They forcibly engaged him to carry the palanquin, although he was not fit for such work. While walking, Jada, being compassionate to the ants, checked every 3 feet not to step on them. Due to this, the palanquin was shaking, and the agitated king asked the reason. The palanquin carriers became afraid of punishment and spoke, "We are not negligent, and we are discharging your orders properly. But this new man does not walk swiftly, and therefore we are unable to carry the palanquin with him." Rahugana's criticism and Jada silence. Rahugana was knowledgeable from serving elderly sages, yet his mind was covered by the mode of passion, and he became angry due to his innate nature as a king. Thus he spoke angrily and sarcastically as follows: "You must be fatigued from carrying the palanquin alone for so long and so far. You must be old and unhealthy, without strong limbs. Are your fellow carriers not cooperating with you?" And Jada response: His spiritual power was covered like fire covered by ashes. He was unaffected because he had no bodily conception of I and mine. Having realized his spiritual identity, without saying anything, he continued carrying the palanquin. When Rahugana noticed his palanquin still shaking, he spoke angrily. "Are you dead despite the life within your body? Don't you know that I am your master and you're disregarding me? You are mad. For this disobedience I shall punish you so that you'll come to your senses." Rahugana was under the bodily conception of being a king. Influenced by passion and ignorance, mad, and considering himself learned. Unaware of the conduct of great yogis, he chastised Jada. Jada, on the other hand, was a powerful devotee, the dear abode of the Lord, self-realized, free from pride, and a friend of all living entities. Therefore, he smiled and spoke as follows. And link. Because Rahugana thought himself very learned, Jada wanted to show mercy on him and defeat him with knowledge. Jada reply to Rahugana. So this is his response to the comments that he were fatigued. "I am a soul detached from the body. Okay. Your words are actually true, not sarcastic. The load, path of travel, and destination belong to the body and not to me, for I am a spirit soul. Being detached from the body, I am not fatigued carrying the palanquin. And now this is his reply to the comment that he were not strong and stout. Fatness, thinness, bodily and mental distress, thirst, hunger, fear, disagreement, desires for material happiness, old age, sleep, attachment for material possessions, anger, lamentation, illusion, and bodily identification are all transformations of the material covering of the spirit soul. These things affect a person absorbed in bodily conception, but I am free of all such conceptions. And now here's his response to the question that, are you dead while alive? So he said, this is the case everywhere, because everything material has its beginning and end. And then his response to Rahugana saying that, I am your master. Today you are a king and I am your servant, but tomorrow these positions might change. Other than convention, I see no distinction between master and servant. Who is the master and who is the servant? Nevertheless, if you think you are a king, what can I do for you? Reply to treats the people, and this is his response to the king saying that he's going to punish him for being mad. I am self-realized. What will you gain by punishing me? Even if I am mad, your punishment will be like beating a dead horse or grinding flour. For punishment doesn't cure madness, but makes one more insane. Alright, so that's what we read up to yesterday. And we'll be finishing the chapter today. Pranams Pradyumna Prabhu and Mantramurti Mataji. Okay. Sorry, I was just looking at the comments. Okay, let's get to Karmashayam Hridaya Granti Bandham Avedaya Saditama Pramata Anena Yogena Yato Padesham Samyak Vyapohyo Parameta Yogat. Oops, I'm on the wrong chapter. What chapter is this? 10. Oh no, more prose. Shri Shuka Uvacha Etavad Anuvada Paribhasha Pratudhirya Munivara Upashama Shila Uparatanatmya Nimitta Upabhogena Karmarardham Vyapanayan Rajayanam Api Tato Vaha. Shukadeva Goswami said, O Maharaj Parikshit, when King Rahugana chastised the exalted devotee Bharata with harsh words, that peaceful, saintly person tolerated it, and he tolerated it all, and replied properly. Nescience is due to the bodily conception, and Bharata was not affected by this false conception. Out of his natural humility, he never considered himself a great devotee, and he agreed to suffer the results of his past karma. Like an ordinary man, he thought that by carrying the palanquin, he was destroying the reactions of his past misdeeds. Thinking in this way, he began to carry the palanquin as before. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. An exalted devotee of the Lord never thinks that he is a Paramahamsa or a liberated person. He always remains a humble servant of the Lord. In all reverse conditions, he agrees to suffer the results of his past life. He never accuses the Lord of putting him into a distressed condition. These are the signs of an exalted devotee. tatenu kampam susamikshamana. When suffering reversed conditions, the devotee always considers that the reversed conditions are the Lord's concessions. He is never angry with his master. He is always satisfied with the position his master offers. In any case, he continues performing his duty in devotional service. Such a person is guaranteed promotion back home, back to Godhead. As stated in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 10.14.8. Tatenu kampam susamikshamano bhunjana evatma kritam vipakam hirvag vapuvir vidadam namaste jivetayo mukti pade sadai bhak. My dear Lord, one who constantly waits for your causeless mercy to be bestowed upon him, and who goes on suffering the reactions of his past misdeeds, offering you respectful obeisances from the core of his heart, is surely eligible for liberation, for it has become his rightful claim. Sachapi pandavya sindhu sorvira patis tattva jigasayam samyak shadhayadikritadikaras tadridhaya granthi mochanam dvijavacha ashruta bahu yoga grantha samatam tvaraya varuhya shirasa padamulam upasrita kshamapayan vigatan nripadeva smaya uvacha. Shukadeva Goswami continued, O best of the Pandu dynasty, Maharaj Parikshit, the king of the Sindhu and Solvira states, Maharaj Rahugana, had great faith in discussions of the absolute truth. Being thus qualified, he heard from Jad Bharat that philosophical presentation which is approved by all scriptures on the mystic yoga process and which slackens the knot in the heart. His material conception of himself as a king was thus destroyed. He immediately descended from his palanquin and fell flat on the ground with his head at the lotus feet of Jad Bharat in such a way that he might be excused for his insulting words against the great Brahman. He then prayed as follows. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Lord Krishna says, Evam parampara praptam imam rajarshayo vidu sakala neha mahata yoganashta parantapa. The supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way. But in course of time, the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Through the disciplic succession, the royal order was on the same platform as great saintly persons, Raja Rishis. Formerly, they could understand the philosophy of life and knew how to train the citizens to come to the same standard. In other words, they knew how to deliver the citizens from the entanglement of birth and death. When Maharaj Dasharatha ruled Ayodhya, the great sage Vishvamitra once came to him to take away Lord Ramachandra and Lakshman to the forest to kill a demon. When the saintly person Vishvamitra came to the court of Maharaj Dasharatha, the king, in order to receive the saintly person, asked him, Ahishtam yat tat punar janma jayaya. He asked the sage whether everything was going on well in his endeavor to conquer the repetition of birth and death. The whole process of Vedic civilization is based on this point. We must know how to conquer the repetition of birth and death. Maharaj Rahugana also knew the purpose of life. Therefore, when Jad Bharat put the philosophy of life before him, he immediately appreciated it. This is the foundation of Vedic society. Learned scholars, Brahmins, saintly persons, and sages who are fully aware of the Vedic purpose advised the royal order how to benefit the general masses, and by their cooperation, the general masses were benefited. Therefore, everything was successful. Maharaj Rahugana attained this perfection of understanding. He attained this perfection of understanding the value of human life. Therefore, he regretted his insulting words to Jad Bharat, and he immediately descended from his palanquin and fell down at the lotus feet of Jad Bharat in order to be excused and to hear from him further about the values of life known as Brahma Jigyasa, inquiry into the absolute truth. At the present moment, high government officials, ignorant of the values of life, are ignorant of the values of life. And when saintly persons endeavor to broadcast the Vedic knowledge, the so-called executives do not offer the respectful obeisances, but try to obstruct the spiritual propaganda. Thus, one can say that the former kingly government was like heaven, and that the present government is like hell. Kastam nigudashtarasi dvijanam bibharshi sutram katamo vaduta kasyasi kutratya ihapikasmat kshemaya nasched asinota shukla. King Rahugana said, "O Brahman, you appear to be moving in this world, very much covered and unknown to others. Who are you? Are you a learned Brahman and saintly person? I see that you are wearing a sacred thread. Are you one of those exalted, liberated saints, such as Dattatreya and other highly advanced learned scholars? May I ask whose disciple you are? Where do you live? Why have you come to this place? Is your mission in coming here to do good for us? Please let me know who you are." Purport. Maharaj Rahugana was very anxious to receive further enlightenment in Vedic knowledge, because he could understand that Jad Bharat belonged to a Brahmin family, either by disciplic succession or by birth in a Brahmin dynasty. As stated in the Vedas, Tadvigyanartam Sagurum Eva Bigachet. This was added in there. This isn't in the original. Rahugana was accepting Jad Bharat as a guru, but the guru must prove his position, not only by wearing a sacred thread, but by advancing knowledge in spiritual life. It is also significant that Rahugana asked Jad Bharat which family he belongs to. There are two types of families, one according to dynasty and other according to disciplic succession. In either way, one can be enlightened. The word Shukla refers to a person in the mode of goodness. If one wants to receive spiritual knowledge, he must approach a bona fide Brahman guru, either in the disciplic succession or in a family of learned Brahmins. Naham vishanke suraraja vajran natraksha nayamasya dandat nagnarkasomanila vitapastrach chanke vrisham brahma kulavamanat. My dear sir, I am not at all afraid of the thunderbolt of King Indra, nor am I afraid of the serpentine piercing trident of Lord Shiva. Nor do I care about the punishment of Yamaraj, the superintendent of death. Nor am I afraid of fire, scorching sun, moon, wind, nor the weapons of Kubera. Yet I am afraid of offending a Brahmin. I am very much afraid of this. Purport. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was instructing Rupa Goswami at the Dasha Ashwamedha Ghat in Prayag, he pointed out very clearly the seriousness of offending a Vaishnava. He compared the Vaishnava aparad to Hati Mata, a mad elephant. When a mad elephant enters a garden, it spoils all the fruits and flowers. Similarly, if one offends a Vaishnava, he spoils all his spiritual assets. Offending a Brahmin is very dangerous, and this was known to Maharaj Rahugana. He therefore frankly admitted his fault. There are many dangerous things: thunderbolts, fire, Yamaraja's punishment, the punishment of Lord Shiva's trident, and so forth. But none is considered as serious as offending a Brahmin like Jad Bharat. Therefore, Maharaj Rahugana immediately descended from his palanquin and fell flat before the lotus feet of the Brahmin, Jad Bharat, just to be excused. One second. Tarbruhya sango jaravani gora vijnana virya vicharasya apara vachangsi yoga gratitani sadho na kshamante manasapi bhetum. My dear sir, it appears that the influence of your great spiritual knowledge is hidden. Factually, you are bereft of all material association and fully absorbed in thought of the Supreme. Consequently, you are unlimitedly advanced in spiritual knowledge. Please tell me, why are you wandering around like a dullard? O great saintly person, you have spoken words approved by the yogic process, but it is not possible for us to understand what you have said. Therefore, kindly explain it. Purport. Saintly people like Jad Bharat do not speak ordinary words. Whatever they say is approved by great yogis and those advanced in spiritual life. That is the difference between ordinary people and saintly people. The listener must also be advanced to understand the words of such exalted spiritually advanced people as Jad Bharat. Bhagavad Gita was spoken to Arjuna, not to others. Lord Krishna especially selected Arjuna for instruction in spiritual knowledge, because Arjuna happened to be a great devotee and confidential friend. Similarly, great personalities also speak to the advanced, not to Shudras, Vaishyas, women, or unintelligent men. Sometimes it is very risky to give great philosophical instructions to ordinary people, but Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for the benefit of the fallen souls of Kali Yuga, has given us a very nice instrument, the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. The general mass of people, although Sudras and less, can be purified by chanting this Hare Krishna mantra. Then they can understand the exalted philosophical statements of Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Our Krishna consciousness movement has therefore adopted the chanting of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra for the general masses. When people gradually become purified, they are instructed in the lessons of Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Materialistic people like Stri, Shudra, and Dvijabandhu cannot understand the words of spiritual advancement, yet one can take to the shelter of a Vaishnava, for he knows the art of enlightening even Shudras in the highly advanced subject matter spoken in Bhagavad Gita and Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Aham cha yogeshwaram atma tattva vidan muninam paramam gurum vai prashtum pravritta kimiharanam tat shakshad dharim jnana kalavatirnam. I consider your good self the most exalted master of mystic power. You know the spiritual science perfectly well. You are the most exalted of all learned sages, and you have descended for the benefit of all human society. You have come to give spiritual knowledge, and you are a direct representative of Kapila-Dev, the incarnation of God, and the plenary portion of knowledge. I am therefore asking you, O spiritual master, what is the most secure shelter in this world? As Krishna confirms in Bhagavad Gita, Yoginam api sarvesham margatayenat margatayenantaratmana shadavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamamata. Of all yogis, he who abides in me with great faith, worshipping me in transcendental loving service, is most intimately united with me in yoga, and is the highest of all. Jad Bharat was a perfect yogi. He was formerly the emperor Bharat Maharaj, and he was now the most exalted personality among learned sages and the master of all mystic powers. Although Jad Bharat was an ordinary living entity, he had inherited all the knowledge given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Kapila-Dev. He could therefore be taken directly as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As confirmed by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in his stanzas to the Spiritual Master, Shakshad Dharitvena Samasta Shastre. An exalted personality like Jad Bharat is as good as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he fully represents the Lord by giving knowledge to others. Jad Bharat is herein accepted as the direct representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, because he was imparting knowledge on behalf of the Supreme Lord. Therefore, Maharaj Rahugana concluded that it is appropriate to ask him about Atma Tattva, the spiritual science. Tadvigyanartam sagurum eva vigachet. This Vedic injunction is also confirmed herein. If anyone is at all interested in knowing the spiritual science, Brahma Jigyasa, he must approach a guru like Bharata. Just double checking that verse wasn't in there. Yeah, it wasn't. So weird. Alright, sometimes does that. Savai bhavaloka nirikshanartam avyaktalingo vicharatyapi svit yogeshwaranam gatamanda buddhi katam vichakshita grahanubandha. Is it not a fact that your good self is the direct representative of Kapiladev, the incarnation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead? To examine people and see who is actually a human being and who is not, you have presented yourself to be a deaf and dumb person. Are you not moving this way upon the surface of the world? I am very attached to family life and worldly activities, and I am blind to spiritual knowledge. Nonetheless, I am now present before you, and am seeking enlightenment from you. How can I advance in spiritual life? Purport. Although Maharaj Rahugana was playing the part of a king, he had been informed by Bharata that he was not a king, nor was Bharata deaf and dumb. Such designations were simply coverings of the spirit soul. Everyone must come to this knowledge, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 2.13, Dehinosmin yata dehe. Everyone is encased within the body. Since the body is never identical with the soul, the bodily activities are simply illusory. In the association of such a sadhu as Bharata, Maharaj Rahugana came to the awareness that his activities as a royal authority were simply illusory phenomena. He therefore agreed to receive knowledge from Bharata, and that was the beginning of his perfection. Tadvigyanartam sagurum eva vigachet. A person like Maharaj Rahugana, who is very inquisitive to know the value of life and the spiritual science, must approach a personality like Bharata. Tasmar gurum prapadeta jigyasu shreya uttamam. Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 11.321. One must approach a guru like Bharata, a representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, to inquire about the goal of human life. Drishta shama karmata atmano vai Bratur grantur bhavataschanumanye yata sato danyan adyanadabhavat samula ishto vyavahara marga. Sorry, I messed up. This was a difficult one. Yata sato danayanadabhavat. There, did it. You have said, I am not fatigued from labor. Although the soul is different from the body, there is fatigue because of, although the soul is different from the body, there is fatigue because of bodily labor, and it appears to be the fatigue of the soul. When you are carrying the palanquin, there is certainly labor for the soul. This is my conjecture. You have also said that the external behavior exhibited between the master and the servant is not factual. But although in the phenomenal world it is not factual, the products of the phenomenal world can actually affect things. That is visible and experienced. As such, even though material activities are impermanent, they cannot be said to be untrue. Purport. This is a discussion on impersonal Mayavad philosophy and the practical philosophy of Vaishnavas. The Mayavad philosophy explains this phenomenal world to be false, but Vaishnava philosophers do not agree. They know that the phenomenal world is a temporary manifestation, but it is not false. A dream that we see at night is certainly false, but a horrible dream certainly affects the person seeing it. The soul's fatigue is not factual, but as long as one is immersed in illusory bodily conception, one is affected by such false dreams. When dreaming, it is not possible to avoid the actual facts, and the conditioned soul is forced to suffer due to his dream. A water pot is made of earth and is temporary. Actually, there is no water pot, there is simply earth. However, as long as the water pot can contain water, we can use it in that way. It cannot be said to be absolutely false. Stalagnitapat payaso bitapas tatapatas tandula garbam randi tehendriyasvashaya sannikarshat tat sangsriti purushasyanurodat. King Rahugana continued, "My dear sir, you have said that designations like bodily fatness and thinness are not characteristics of the soul. That is incorrect, because designations like pain and pleasure are certainly felt by the soul. You may put a pot of milk and rice within fire, and the milk and rice are automatically heated one after the other. Similarly, due to bodily pains and pleasures, the senses, mind, and soul are affected. The soul cannot be completely detached from this conditioning." Purport. This argument put forward by Maharaj Rahugana is correct from the practical point of view, but it arises from attachments to the bodily conception. It can be said that a person sitting in his car is certainly different from his car, but if there is damage to the car, the owner of the car, being overly attached to the car, feels pain. Actually, the damage done to the car has nothing to do with the car's proprietor, but because the proprietor identified himself with the interest of the car, he feels pleasure and pain connected with it. This conditional state can be avoided if attachment is withdrawn from the car. Then the proprietor would not feel pleasure or pain if the car is damaged or whatever. Similarly, the soul has nothing to do with the body and the senses, but due to ignorance, he identifies himself with the body, and he feels pleasure and pain due to bodily pleasure and pain. Shasta vigopta nripati prajanam yankinkaro vaina pinashtipishtam sadarvamaradanam achyutasya yad ihamano vijahatan aghogam. My dear sir, you have said that the relationship between the king and the subject, or between the master and the servant, are not eternal. But although such relationships are temporary, when a person takes the position of a king, his duty is to rule the citizens and punish those who are disobedient to the laws. By punishing them, he teaches the citizens to obey the laws of the state. Again, you have said that punishing a person who is deaf and dumb is like chewing the chewed or grinding the pulp. That is to say, there is no benefit in it. However, if one is engaged in his own occupational duty as ordered by the Supreme Lord, his sinful activities are certainly diminished. Therefore, if one is engaged in his occupational duty by force, he benefits because he can vanquish all his sinful activities in that way. Purport. This argument offered by Maharaj Rahugana is certainly very effective. In his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 124, Srila Rupa Goswami says, Tasmat kenapyupayena mana Krishne niveshayet. Somehow or other, one should engage in Krishna consciousness. Actually, every living being is an eternal servant of Krishna, but due to forgetfulness, a living entity engages himself as an eternal servant of Maya. As long as one is engaged in Maya's service, he cannot be happy. Our Krishna consciousness movement aims at engaging people in Lord Krishna's service. That will help them become freed from all material contamination and sinful activity. This is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 4.10, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha. By becoming detached from material activities, we will be freed from fear and anger. By austerity, one becomes purified and eligible to return home back to Godhead. The duty of the king is to rule his citizens in such a way that they can become Krishna conscious. This would be very beneficial for everyone. Unfortunately, the king or president engages people in sense gratification instead of the Lord's service, and such activities are certainly not beneficial for anyone. King Rahugana tried to engage Judge Bharata in carrying the palanquin, which is a form of sense gratification for the king. However, if one is engaged as a palanquin carrier in the Lord's service, that is certainly beneficial. In this godless civilization, if a president engages people somehow or other in devotional service or an awakening of Krishna consciousness, he renders the very best service to the citizens. Tanme bhavanara devabhimana madena tucci krita sattamasya krishishta maitri drishamartha bandho yatha tare sad avadhyanamahama. What you have spoken appears to me to be contradictory. O best friend of the distressed, I have committed a great offense by insulting you. I was puffed up with false prestige due to possessing the body of a king. For this I have certainly become an offender. Therefore I pray that you kindly glance at me with your causeless mercy. If you do so, I can be relieved from sinful activities brought about by insulting you. Purport. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has said that by offending a Vaishnava, one finishes all his spiritual activities. Offending a Vaishnava is considered the mad elephant offense. A mad elephant can destroy an entire garden which has been developed with great labor. One may attain the topmost platform of devotional service, but somehow or other, if he offends a Vaishnava, the whole structure collapses. Unconsciously, King Rahugana offended Judge Bharata, but due to his good sense, he asked to be excused. This is the process by which one can be relieved from a Vaishnava aparad. Krishna is always very simple and by nature merciful. When one commits an offense at the feet of a Vaishnava, one must immediately apologize to such a personality so that his spiritual advancement may not be hampered. Na vikriya vishva suhrit sakasya samyena vita bimatestavapi mahar vimanat swakrita dimadrin nakshyatudarad apishulapani. Oh, this is the verse that we're supposed to learn in our shloka group. Well, it was an optional shloka to learn. I haven't learned it yet, obviously. And it was only these last two words, these last two lines, not these first two lines. Mahar vimanat swakrita dimadrin nakshatya turad apishulapani. We learned the Bengali rendition of this. Oh, my dear Lord, you are the friend of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the friend of all living entities, and therefore equal to everyone, and you are free from the bodily conception. Although I have committed an offense by insulting you, I know that there is no loss or gain for you due to my insult. You are fixed in your determination, but I have committed an offense. This is the part that we learned. Because of this, even though I may be as strong as Lord Shiva, I shall be vanquished without delay due to my offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. So this is the point. Even if somebody is as strong as Lord Shiva, that person will be vanquished without delay if he offends a Vaishnava. Purport. Yeah, this is the verse we learned. Shulapani Jadi Bhakta. Anyways. Maharaj Rahugana was very intelligent and conscious of the inauspicious effects arising from insulting a Vaishnava. He was therefore very anxious to be excused by Jad Bharat. Following in the footsteps of Maharaj Rahugana, everyone should be very cautious not to commit an offense at the lotus feet of a Vaishnava. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Madhya 13 says, Shulapani samajadi bhakta ninda kore, Bhagavat pramana tatapi hashigra more. Hena Vaishnavere ninde sarvagya hoy, Shri janera adapata sarva shastre koi. Even if one is as strong as Lord Shiva, who carries a trident in his hand, one will nonetheless fall down from his spiritual position if he tries to insult a Vaishnava. This is the verdict of all Vedic scriptures. He also says this in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Madhya 22. Vaishnavera ninda kori beka jargan, tar raksha samartya nahi ko kona jan. Shulapani samajadi Vaishnavere ninde, tatapiha nasha jai, kahe shastra vrinde, iha namaniya jay sujana ninda kore, janme janme se papishta daiva doshe more. One who blasphemes a Vaishnava cannot be protected by anyone. Even if a person is as strong as Lord Shiva, if he blasphemes a Vaishnava, he is sure to be destroyed. This is the verdict of all Shastras. If one does not care for the verdict of the Shastras and dares blaspheme a Vaishnava, he suffers life after life because of this. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purports of the 5th canto, 10th chapter of the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, entitled The Discussion Between Jad Bharat and Maharaj Rahugana. That was a good, very nice way to end Vaishnava Parad. And so in our next reading, which will be the day after tomorrow, I'm not going to read tomorrow. I'm going to read about Srila Bhakti-Vigyan Bharati Goswami Maharaj, and I'm also going to give Indira Mataji a day to travel. She won't be able to make it because she's traveling to a different country. So we're not going to read tomorrow. But the day after tomorrow, we will read Jad Bharat sections to King Rahugana. How materially absorbed people cannot understand tattva. The mind is the cause of entanglement. The functions of the mind. The liberated soul is absorbed in the Supreme Lord. Deliverance of the conditioned souls from illusion. So we'll read all those topics after tomorrow. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. Nitai Gaur, Hari Bol. Jai Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Shri Shri Radha Vinod Bihari Ju Ki Jai. Shri Govinda Gopinath Maran Mohan Ju Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupar Ashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Narayan Goswami Maharaj Srila Gurudev Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupar Ashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupar Ashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupar Ashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhakti-Vigyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitil Pravishta Vishnupar Ashata Rashata Shmar Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Nitya Pravishta Maha Bhagavat Shila Goksharas Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Shila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur ki jai. Nitya Pravishta Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Shila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj ki jai. Shri Rupano Goriya Guru Varga ki jai. Shri Rup Sanatan Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Patadash Raghunath Shara Gosai Prabhu ki jai. Shri Sarup Damodar Rai Ramanandari Shri Gaur Parshad Vrinda ki jai. Nama Chai Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासरी गौर भक्त वृंद की जाय. श्री क्षेत्र मंडल गौर मंडल ब्रज मंडल मथुर वृंदावन धाम की जाय. सर्व अभिष्ट प्रदात गिरिराज महाराज की जाय. श्री राधा कुंड श्याम कुंड की जाय. श्री मनु देवी गंगा देवी की जाय. श्री तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी की जाय. श्री भक्ति देवी की जाय. श्री पूर्णमासी योगमाया की जाय. श्री गोपेश्वर महादेव की जाय. श्री हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जाय. Srila Bhakti Kamal Madhusudan Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Tadiya Shubhati Rabhakti ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai. Samagata Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Shri Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Shri Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Om. Vrindaya Tulsi Devaya Priyaya Keshavashacha Krishna Bhakti Pradadevi Sattvatāya Namo Namaha. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhyaya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. And Indira Mataji, there's no need to be sorry about that. That's great that you're still gonna follow along with the recordings. That will, and you can also, if you listen afterwards, you can double the speed or make it 1.5 times faster. And Rup Manjari Didi, it is interesting for the people who had no preparation or readiness to hear that you gave mercy. Yeah, that is true, isn't it? The Madhyam Adhikari knows what level somebody's at. Right? Isn't that what we learned, Manjari? Is that if somebody is an Uttam Vaishnav, they come down because they don't see any difference between themselves and everybody else, and they think that everybody is liberated, so they're not able to give instructions. So they willingly come down to the Madhyam level so that they can discriminate. And Jada Bharat, he was able to understand that the king would actually hear him. All right, Dandavat Pranams, everybody. Hari Bol. How? Oh, sorry. Hari Bol.